And I appreciate having Olaf on stage with me. It worked very well yesterday, so hopefully it'll pan out today as well. So, I wanted to start. I know that the topic on the agenda says that my talk was going to be on PDF and mobile devices, or what we lovingly refer to as from Watch the Wall. I will get there, but I'm going to take a interesting route, I think, to get there. And I chose to go this way based on a number of conversations recently, going all the way back to the technical conference in San Jose, some conversations that took place over a lot of beer during the ISO meetings in Ghent. And so I wanted to sort of take us on a bit of a journey. The other thing, as I'm sure many of you are aware, you might have heard that in the United States we have this election thing going on. Doesn't get a lot of news, I know, but you might have heard about it. And so the idea we have in the United States, what's called the State of the Union, once a year, where the president gets up and sort of lets everybody know how things are going. So with all of this in mind, this is sort of why I decided to take us on this journey this morning. So hopefully you'll bear with me, and I think you'll actually find it very interesting. And as I said, we will get to the original topic as we go. So I wanted to take us back in history. I'm sure many of you have seen this. This is the beginnings of PDF, came from a paper from Dr. Warnock called the Camelot paper. And this is the key phrase, really, out of the Camelot paper. And a lot of us at Adobe keep this around on our walls and such, sort of remind us of our goal and what we're trying to achieve. And specifically, it's that second sentence. The problem is concerned with our ability to communicate visual material between different computer applications and systems. And that was really what John wanted to achieve with Camelot, and I think we can certainly say, and as we go through, we've achieved that in the last 23 years with PDF, and that's in no short part to many of you here in this room as well, because it's not just about what we were able to achieve as Adobe, but what we as a community and an ecosystem we're able to build. The old expression, it takes a village. This is certainly the village that has built PDF, and that's going to become very important as we talk about this and continuing into the future. So I think one of the ways we've been very successful as a community is that PDF is everywhere. It is not only in applications as it was in the past, but it's built into every platform, every desktop platform, Mac OS, Windows, even Linux platforms. It's integrated not only for things like viewing, but it's also the native printing model that these platforms use. Cloud printing, which actually isn't even represented up here. If you try to print through the cloud, printing with most printers, PDF is the lingua franca. It's the way that we're exchanging that information. Every browser today, Firefox, Chrome, even the new Microsoft Edge, has PDF native support built in. They don't need extra components. It's integrated. It's just a given. In fact, if you actually read the HTML5 specification, you'll actually find that PDF is a normative reference. They actually use examples in the HTML5 spec of PDF. It is a native part of the web. It's a native part of the open platform that we exchange content in today. So on our mobile devices, it's integrated and really into everything we do, everywhere we are. And that's a win. That is what has helped us get to where we are today. And I think will continue to help us grow. So I wanted to take a look at a lot of people, ourselves included, really find that if we look at what's going on in and amongst our users and amongst the community, we can learn a lot about the reality of today. So I thought I'd show you and take you through some data that we've gathered. So the first thing I start with is the fact that we talked about PDF being everywhere in terms of viewing. I thought I'd start with PDF for creation. So this is a look at the breakdown of creators that we've seen recently. This is some fairly recent data coming out of our products. And I will point out that all of the data I'm going to show you is coming from our products. And I'll talk a little bit about what that really means in a bit. but while we look at this slide, some of the key things you see here are certainly Adobe's products being a very key producer, but Microsoft is right behind us. And thanks to Bruno, iText variants also have a huge impact. There's lots of PDFs being created by iText and its variants. macOS, these are the major ones. The one that always, Nitro is up here, so kudos to them. The one surprising one in this particular list to me is Muni, which is a company that's been around for a long time and you never see them. They don't come to our conferences. Dov, put them on your list of people to join the association for next year. Yet there's still a lot of content out there. Now, here's the interesting thing as I go to the list of others. Remember that this is not necessarily PDFs that are created today. These are the creators of PDFs that people are consuming today. And this is an important thing. And you look through this list, when I was going through it, a lot of these names I've never heard of. And I've been doing this for 20 some odd years. There are companies I've never heard of. So you'll notice that some of them are in purple. Those are actually companies or products that are out of business. Yet, these are documents created by these things that are being read today. And what we're learning, what we can clearly take away from that, is that this is the whole point of PDF. We don't know how old these documents are. These documents could have been created 20 years ago. But they're being consumed today, in readers today. So this stuff has longevity. And that's part of, and a good thing, that we've been able to achieve as a community. So what do we know? So let's talk about some public information. Okay, before I get into some specifics, more specifics from our products. You can do the standard thing we all like to do. You go to Google, you say, tell me about file type PDF. As of the other day, there are 2.2 billion according to Google. Dropbox has told us publicly that there are about 20 billion PDFs in Dropbox today, at least that they're willing to disclose. We know that companies like Airbus, Boeing, the US Department of Justice, we heard from Scott yesterday about customers, each of whom having over 1 billion PDFs individually, those individual companies. Airbus has 1 billion, Boeing has 1 billion, Scott mentioned his. And those are just ones we know about. Certainly, I'm sure each of you know customers, your own customers, who have PDFs in that number. Outlook, Google Drive, and Google processing a lot of PDFs. 73 million PDFs every day are created through the Google family of products. Okay, it's a lot of documents being created, and we get asked like how many are out there. In fact, this came up during Scott's keynote yesterday. And we threw out this number of 3 trillion. To be honest, I think that's small, but I think the most important thing is, I don't think it's important. The total number of documents out there, the total number of PDFs, I think is irrelevant. I don't think it's about the total number of documents that are out there. I think it's about what those documents are, what they represent, what they're made from, if you will, what is used, what are the parts of PDF that people are actually using, and how can we learn from that to really think about what is, and I know Matt will talk about this a bit this afternoon, what are the important parts of PDF, what are the things that we've really been successful with, and what are the parts that we haven't been, and also, as I'll get to a little later, what's missing. What are the things that we want to see that aren't being used and could be there to improve PDF? So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to start showing you some numbers from our products. So let me start out by pointing out that these numbers represent the actual information, anonymous data from our customers in the Acrobat and Reader desktop products. So first off, these are people who have actively opted in. So they had to take an action to say, yes, I'm willing to let you know that it's okay to get this information from me. So this is opted in. It is entirely anonymous. So even though we have 1 billion desktops out there running Acrobat and Reader, we also have millions of mobile clients out there. Not every one of those is reporting this data, so don't take this as like every Acrobat user and every Reader user. It's not. It's a limited set. It's also, as I started the presentation, Acrobat and Reader are not the only game in town. And in fact, I think it's fairly safe to say, and we're okay with, we are probably not the #1 place that people consume PDFs anymore. We're certainly a significant place. We believe we're still a significant place. But many of you have products that are used by a large number of users. Not to mention, as we said, the browser vendors. A Mac OS preview gets a lot of usage. It's the default viewer on the Mac. The new built-in one in Windows 10 gets a lot of usage. Because again, it's built in, it's the default. So you should take these numbers as a set of numbers from a set of customers. But, so for us it's important. It tells us what our customers are doing. But I think it really does represent a fairly reasonable microcosm of the community at large. I think there's some exceptions, and I'll point those out as we get to them. But I think it's still fairly representative. So we can look at how many documents were open. So this data, this particular data on this and the following slide is 1 month of data. This is the data collected from April 1st through April 31st. I don't remember how many days were in April. 30 days in April? Okay, through April 30th. See, I'm glad I have Stefan here to correct me. He's very good at that. So 30 days worth of data collected from our products. This is fresh information, so thought it would be useful. So again, you can read some of the numbers, but I want to talk about them, again, in relative terms. If you look at the number of users versus the number of documents they opened in Acrobat, obviously we average it out. It's about 3 documents per user during the month of April. In Reader, it's about 2 documents per user. Okay? Obviously, it doesn't normally work that way. We think that, we don't know for certain, but we're fairly certain that most Reader users are probably reading 1 document. Some of them are reading many. With Acrobat, it's probably fairly similar. It really depends on the use case. But this is, as I said, real world data. It's interesting. But I think more than how many documents are opened, it's what they do with those documents once they open them. So it's interesting to see that about 20 to 25% of the documents that are opened are actually printed today. Still, that is a primary use case. In fact, it is the #1 use case. After somebody opens a document, other than reading it, the #1 thing they do is they print it today. Still very interesting. The other thing that is extremely high use, and again, shouldn't come as a surprise, is commenting, which is why I put it up here. Somewhere in the 5 to 10% range, people are commenting on documents. And I didn't put it here, but I'll note, and again, I think most of you will probably guess this if I were to ask, that the 2 most popular commenting tools, Post-it notes and highlighting. And then it goes down, strike through, and things like that. But commenting is still a significant use case amongst our customers, at least. And again, I would speculate most PDF viewers. But the one I find the most interesting, and you'll hear a couple of talks about this area today, is in the area of digital signatures. 10 million documents, forget percentages. Just in the month of April, 10 million PDFs were signed in our clients. That's a lot of documents being digitally signed. And that is a number, and I haven't really talked about historical trends, but that is a number that is constantly on the rise. We go back, it is constantly going up. We haven't seen any significant dips in that. If anything, we've seen a couple of spikes certain times of the year. But I think it's something that is clearly growing. I think, as you'll hear about a little later from Bernd, things like the EIDAS regulations here in the EU will probably increase that. So I think it's something to keep in mind. I think it's clearly an area of growth for PDF and documents. So let's look at some other statistics. Some ones that I picked out. We certainly have lots and lots of statistics. I just kind of picked out ones I thought were interesting. The largest document that was opened in April was 67,000 pages in length. Some months we have larger documents, some months smaller. This just happened to be this month's largest document. I said this to somebody yesterday and they wanted to know why they were using such small documents. So again, it's all relative. I will tell you, I don't know what this document was. I have no, it's all anonymous. We don't know. The only thing I can tell you is it was only ever opened once. So whatever the person needed, they got it and never opened it again. So that much I do know. So very interesting. But I think the more important things when we talk about the pages, and I do think this is significant as we think about our products, 20% of all files opened out of all of the, almost 2 million files, I think it was, single pages. 70%, 10 pages or less. So that's a significant number of documents are what we would consider relatively small. Okay? And obviously it goes up as we saw, all the way up to 67,000. But the vast majority of documents opened, at least by our customers. And again, I suspect if we go to look at this across all PDFs, we would probably find that same thing. The vast majority, 10 pages or less. The next piece of information I continue to find shocking is that 1/4 of all documents that were opened are image only. Okay? So now, I don't know if that's a scan, and this is one of the things we don't know. We don't know if that's coming out of a scanner, if that's coming from a, convert from picture, if that is, we don't know why. Maybe it was something they authored in Photoshop. Don't know why, but it is still, I think, very telling that there are that many image-only PDFs being viewed today. Now, again, we don't know what people are doing once they open them. We could hope that they scanned something, they opened it up in the product to then go ahead and OCR it and improve it and something like that. That's something we would like to hope. We don't know. But it is interesting that it's that many. I then picked a couple of interesting PDF pieces. 12% of the documents had bookmarks. Bookmarks we like to think is a very popular navigation element. 12% isn't bad. I think I'd like to see it go higher. Personally would love to see more documents contain bookmarks, but I think it's interesting. The two that I thought were somewhat shocking when I first looked at them, 4% with optional content, or you may know them as layers, 10% with page piece information, which is very interesting because it's a feature we just deprecated out of ISO 32000 Part 2. So my original reaction is, oh my God, maybe we shouldn't have not deprecated it. And then I thought about it, and I realized why this number was very high for us. So again, these are our products. Every one of our Creative Cloud customers gets a copy of Acrobat. Photoshop and Illustrator are heavy users today of the Page Piece Dictionary. And what most of our users do after they make a PDF is they go and they view it in Acrobat to make sure it looks okay. So I don't know, but I'm speculating that probably all of that 10% are files coming out of Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay? So I suspect if we could look at some other vendors' data, that number would probably be very, very small. But for us, for this reason, I'm speculating it's very, very large. But it shocked me originally, and I was kind of worried about it until I thought through why. And I think that's part of when you look at these numbers, is trying to understand them and put them in your context. 60% of the documents were linearized or fast web view enabled. Again, I think that's fairly good. It's a fairly flat line over time. It's one of those things I'd always wished would go up, but most of those creators, if we go back to that list of creators, most creators do not create linearized files. We do by default, a couple of other vendors do, but if you look over that list, it's not the vast majority of that list. This one I put in for Duff and others. 18% of the documents were tagged. This is a rising number. It's rising slowly, but it's rising. But I think more interestingly is we started recently looking in depth, getting more information. Not only is it tagged, but how is it tagged? What's in there? So I thought it was interesting. I put two specific statistics up. So of those 18%, so of the total set of tagged PDFs, 16% of them had lists in them. I went back and looked. I forgot to put it on the slide. About the same number had tables. 33% had headings, either an H1 or an H. I use that as a fairly good consideration for presence of headings. I figured if I looked at an H2 or an H3, I wouldn't get the same information. So an H or an H1, 33% of the total tags. So that's interesting because, again, you would think that more documents that are tagged would have headings because they're structured, they're organized in some fashion, yet clearly the vast majority are not. Again, I don't know why, don't have the actual files to look at, but I put it forward, especially to those of you working in the accessibility and the tagged PDF community, to perhaps give some thought as to why that might be and what we could do to work on that. 25% were encrypted. I'll point out three interesting ones for three reasons. I've never heard of them, which always surprises me when I see things I'm not aware of. And then the two underlined ones, and I don't know if, probably none of the rest of you will pick this out, but the first one, or the one in the middle, NeoView, is an illegal name, because if you've read Annex E of 32,000, second class names have to be 4 characters in length, and NeoView is a little longer than 4 characters. So that's actually an illegal identifier. The second one is interesting because what it tells me is whoever WNJ sec is didn't bother to modify the sample code they used to create their product because they used ADBE, which is Adobe's identifier, and it's clearly not from us. So interesting thing, again, interesting things you learn looking at data. So I thought that was funny and thought I would show it. Forms, always a favorite. 22% of the documents that were opened in April were forms. 19%, so if you break down that 22%, I did this a little differently. So total documents, 19% of them, Acroforms, 3% XFA. That's of the total, that's not of the 22%. So interesting numbers. And again, remember, this is Adobe's product, so some of these numbers are potentially skewed. We also are starting to look at what's in the form. So of the total number of forms, 17% have JavaScript. That's actually small. I was actually very surprised to see that only 17% had JavaScript in them. I found that a little small. Of those 17%, we went and looked at what type of JavaScripts were there. 21% had something custom, meaning that it wasn't just a user going and saying, give me I want this to be a number field, which actually generates some JavaScript. It was actually something custom in there. So some interesting pieces of info. We also have discovered that, and this is something interesting that as you think about gathering this data, if any of you are going to do this in your own products, when is a form not a form? So just because it has a form field on it, it has an Acroform dictionary, it may not actually be a form, at least what we would consider one. For example, if you web capture a page that has a search field on it, that will give you an Acroform dictionary and a form widget, but that's not a form, at least nothing we would consider a form. And then documents with buttons on them that don't actually that aren't form related, like an interactive PDF. You look for the form dictionary, you'll think of it as a form, and it's not. So some interesting things to think about as you actually try to analyze what is a form. All right, so this is some interesting stuff, and it got me to thinking, and it's actually something we've been doing now for about a year, which is, have we succeeded? Are we done? My colleague Scott yesterday, actually in his presentation, we didn't talk about this, although it sounds like we did. Scott said, is this the perfect document format? Are we done? Is PDF ready, or modulo what we're working on for 32,000 Part 2? Can we relax? And I'm going to say no, we can't. So myself, Rick Treitman, and Matthew Hardy, who are the other two Adobe representatives here this week, have been out and about talking to customers for about a year now. We've talked to thousands of customers around the world. And what we asked them was not, what do you hate about Acrobat or Reader? That's an easy question to answer. It's what bothers you, what frustrates you about PDF. the file format, the technology, the container, the package. What is it about PDF that frustrates you the most? And we have talked to students, and we have talked to government agencies, and we've talked to architects, and we've talked to lawyers. I mean, and you think about the range of customers that we have, and also that you yourselves have, and of all the places that PDF are used. We went out and tried to reach everybody in as many countries and areas of the world as we could. So if I were to boil all of that down into one single slide, and I'll then go into more detail, but if I could boil all of their frustrations into one slide, it would be this. PDF is not engineered for the modern device era. And here's where we now get into the original topic. So, now, granted, this shouldn't come as a shock. We built PDF 23 years ago with a very different set of machines and a very different world in mind. And while many things have been added to the PDF language over those 23 years, the fundamental ideas and some of those fundamental concepts, like a fixed page of 8.5 by 11 or A4 or whatnot, hasn't changed. The true underlying concepts have not changed. And for our customers, and I'll explain what these really mean in a minute, that means it's not feeling like something in the modern era. Now, let's sort of break this down. We've talked, as I said, we talked to individuals, we talked to students, we talked to the average person on the street. What is it that frustrates you? It doesn't, when they read a PDF, they have to pin, and again, I'm sure we're all familiar with this. We have to pinch and we have to zoom to scroll around and navigate working on a document. It's not the way they read every other piece of content on their devices. It doesn't feel like every other piece of content. It's not interactive, it's not responsive. Now, all of us in this room go, well, yeah, of course not, it's not supposed to be. But it's actually interesting. We talked to customers who actually said to us, you know, it's really strange that I have to pinch and zoom to view this PDF because it's PDF. It should just work. And that's the way, in their minds, these people think about it. PDF lets them get their content on every device. They don't think about, oh, it's a fixed page. That's not their mindset. It's, I get to take my content, I make it, I send it, and everybody can view it easily. Well, it's not as easy everywhere as it used to be. So, you know, very, very interesting talking to these folks, talking to individuals. Now let's take this up a notch. What do enterprises think? Certainly some of these things that we just talked about in terms of responsive and interactive are important, especially when it comes to building a rich, engaging document. So I'll give you a good example. We talked to a number of customers. I'll give you an example of a financial customer we talked to. So this particular financial customer, they build dashboards for their executives. Their executives, so dashboard, they have to be in PDF. The executives only read PDF, and they only read them on their iPads. And they have to be fully self-contained, disconnected. So using something like Tableau, going out to the web, not an option. Has to be a PDF, has to be self-contained. Today, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to build these things for their executives. All right? That's a lot of money being spent to build custom documents by hand. They'd like something that would automate that and would make for a much richer, engaging document. We talked to a customer of ours in Texas in the United States who actually build custom dashboards for customers. And they give them a choice. They build them in HTML and they're really interactive and engaging, and they build PDFs. 80% of their customers choose PDF over HTML. 80% prefer PDF. Why? Because they can take it with them, they can view it anytime, anywhere, they don't have to remember a URL, they can stick it anywhere they want, they can email it around if somebody else wants to see that data. PDFs, clearly the formatted choice for doing this type of thing. Many other examples of this sort of thing that I can go through. But I want to point out one other area that we heard from our enterprises, and that is in the area of data. PDF, and you'll actually see this quote a little later, PDF has been called the place where data goes to die. It goes in and you cannot get it out. The data isn't given its true richness. Customers want to be able to get that information back out and get it out in a machine-readable way, so that they can do something with it. They don't just want to see it. They don't want to see a picture of a table. They actually want the real table of data. They want the equations, the formulas that went into building that table of data, so that they can do additional processing on it. So very important, and certainly we've made some strides in this area. PDF A3 is a great example of this, where there's a feature in the language, which we've now put into PDF 2.0, that enables you to not only put in that data, but to properly associate it with the relevant PDF objects. So we're starting to make strides, but it's really not been exposed yet to the customer. If you've never seen this before, the idea here, this is something called the open data movement, or this particular one is 5-star data. It's actually something been promoted by Tim Berners-Lee, the gentleman behind the internet and the web, or the web, not the internet. And you can see that PDF only gets 1 star. We're considered evil and bad when it comes to open data. And things like linked open data, the web, etc. get 5. Turns out that we get a bad rap. It's not that PDF can't get all 5 stars. You actually can. But it takes a lot more work to make a 5-star PDF than it does to make a 5-star web page. So how can we get PDF up in that 5-star position and get people thinking that it's a 5-star solution? That's something we need to think about. We talked to government and education. What are the number one things we heard from them? Their people are mobile. There are more and more citizens in more and more countries around the world. And we're hearing this again, not just from, quote, third world countries, but from many countries around the world. Their citizens are mobile only. The only devices some of these people have to get them on the internet, their cell phones. That's it. It's the only way they can get online, which means the government needs to be able to interact with these people on their phones. Everything has to be mobile aware, mobile friendly. Okay. How do you get to them? And secondarily, something I know many of you are involved in, it has to be accessible. It has to be every single citizen of the country, every single, in the case of education, every student has to be able to get access to this content. Now, again, in both cases, PDF works. You can use PDF in both cases. We know that PDF is and can be a wonderful, accessible format. We have a whole standard, PDF UA, that goes into that. But, and I don't think anyone here would challenge that, it's really hard to make an accessible PDF. It's doable, no question, but it's hard, and it's harder than other technologies and similar technologies that are out there. And that's what we're hearing. We talked to, for example, one customer in the U.S. government gets 4,000 documents every day that they then have to make accessible in order to put out on the government website. 4,000 a day that have to become accessible. They come in as nothing. They come in as, just some arbitrary PDF or sometimes a Word file from some other part of the government, and this one agency has to make them accessible. Think about how quickly they have to turn these around. If they're getting 4,000 a day, you're getting backed up very, very quickly. For those of you who've done accessibility remediation, I don't think any of us want that job. I know I don't, certainly. You also have countries like Canada. I don't know if you folks are aware of this, and I know there's some Canadians in the room. Canada is actually ready and has notified a number of vendors, ourselves included, that they are ready to remove all PDFs from every government website in Canada because of the accessibility problem. We've actually been we met recently with the Australian government over a similar issue. Australia has long been negative about PDF accessibility, and we've tried very hard to continue to push back and get them to accept it, but it's a continual fight. And it's something that I think we all need to keep in mind, and I'm sure that you've heard this happening in other countries. So how do we make people not only recognize that PDF can be accessible, but it's easy to be accessible? And the lawsuits in this area continue to climb. This is just an example within the United States, although some of these are multinational companies. Most of these lawsuits happen in the US because people like our lawyers, I guess, I don't know. But, you know, lots and lots of lawsuits going on constantly in education, in the industry, business, government. Make your documents accessible or we're going to sue you. And a lot of these have been won. People are making money and documents are having to be completely reauthored and redone to become accessible. Industry influentials. As I mentioned, we've heard things, Chris Prattley's comment from 2012, again, one of my favorites. Documents go to die in PDF. It's the Roach Motel for data. This is one I keep very close and frequently repeat to myself as a reminder of things that need to be fixed. The other one is actually fairly recent from 2015 I thought was interesting. This gentleman who is very famous within the analytics industry really loves PDF, but as part of this article about it, he said it's not holding its own. It's not keeping up to that promise that we talked about at the beginning of exchanging information. And he even proposed a whole new format called the analytical document format, specific for exchanging analytics data and data dashboards and the like. Because again, PDF wasn't holding its promise. We also have other standards bodies who are, if you will, attacking, I don't want to say attacking us, they're coming, well, some of them are coming directly at us. There are some people on the committee who would like to see PDF die. In fact, I'll give you an example of this. Rick and I were just recently at one of their conferences, and we heard two very interesting things. The first was that every time a presenter would get up and they would present, they'd say, "I'm sorry that I'm presenting in PDF, but it works." So they had to apologize that they weren't using their own format. The other thing we heard was there was a blind gentleman sitting down, and he was having a private conversation. It was like the other side of the room. And all of a sudden, he blurts out in this loud voice, "They sent it in PDF, shoot me now!" It was the craziest thing that this guy, like, for him, sending something around in PDF was evil and bad. And to us, we think of it exactly the other way. So, a lot of interesting things happening. But I will tell you on the good side, as I go towards wrapping this up, so we asked users, okay, you gave us all of these problems, you told us about your concerns, so what should we do? Should we replace PDF? Should we find something new and different and give you something better? Is there anything better out there? And every single one of these thousands of customers we talked to said, no way. We know PDF, we have trained our people, we have systems, we have millions and millions of dollars invested in PDF. We know how to use them, we can send them any way we want, we can store them the way we want, our people have the tools. Do not replace PDF. We would like a better PDF, but we want PDF. And I think that is a very, very clear message that we should all hear. That we've done our jobs really, really well. We have gotten customers to accept and adopt and embrace, I would even say, PDF and all that it is. And they don't want to get rid of it. They just would like to see some improvements. So, what should we do about that? What can we do as a group? And so, I want to put forth a proposal to this group, and it's something I'm going to carry forward over the next couple of days. And that is that I would like to leverage the PDF Association and its membership to start a technical working group to try to solve some of these problems. I'm not saying I have the answers. In fact, I know many of you do have some suggestions and some answers to many of these problems. We heard 4 companies present at the technical conference in San Jose, specifically on a number of these areas. We have experts in this room and in this community in accessibility, in open data, in responsive design. I want to leverage that expertise and the expertise of our membership in the association to figure out how we solve this. So I'm going to, tomorrow morning, we have a board of directors meeting, and I'm going to go to the board and recommend this, hopefully, and that's my plan. And if you agree, tell me between now and then, so I have your support and I can let folks know this. For Adobe is willing to fund this technical working group. We believe that this is the most important thing we as a PDF community can do, is to study this problem and come up with a solution as a community, as an organization, that we can then take to the ISO for standardization. So this is what I'm proposing we do as a community, and this is the way it has to happen. It happens through the community, it happens through this PDF association, and then through the standardization process that is ISO. So, thank you very much for your time this morning. I hope this gave you some interesting things to think about. And as always, I'm around all day, and I'm happy to answer questions and talk about this or anything else. So, thank you very much.